Hi everyone and welcome to this week's video. This week I thought it would be really nice to take you around the flower patches because we haven't been in them in the last few weeks. A lot of my videos recently have been concentrating on sowing seeds and looking at the seedlings, taking cuttings and working in the greenhouse. So I thought it would be nice to go around and see all the things that are flowering in May. There's hardy annuals starting to flower, there's lots of perennials coming through, the ranunculus and anemones I've got going, so lots to show you today. And it's really nice as well because there's lots of wildlife in the garden at the moment. I've had robins helping me in the garden, just sitting beside me while I've been planting. I've had frogs jumping out of me, lots and lots of bees on the flowers, which is nice to see. And the scent of the flowers at this time of year is amazing as well, especially after we've had some rain and it's warm weather too. So things like the rhododendrons smelling lovely, and we've got the Hesperis here, which is smelling really nice as well. And one of the things that I wanted to show you as well today was the difference in the size of plants. So I've got lots of hardy annuals that I sowed back in the autumn and I've planted out, and they're not far off flowering now, and they're really nice large size plants. And then I've got the ones that I sowed in the late winter, early spring this year, and they're much smaller plants. So it's quite interesting to see just that difference, and when you sow your seeds can make a really big difference to the size of plant you'll eventually get and the number of flowers as well. So let's go and have a look around the garden. So let's go down to the flower patches and have a look and see what is flowering really well there in May at the moment. The weather this week is full of showers and sunny spells, but it's quite warm, so we haven't had any frost. So first up in the flower patch we've got our Orlaya, and this was sown from seed in the autumn and it's just starting to show its first buds now. It grows really well in the garden, but probably not as tall as it would if it was in a polytunnel, but I can get some lovely flowers from this, and I think in the next 2 to 3 weeks we'll start to have a really lovely display. These are poppies that I grew from seed back in the autumn and overwintered and planted out in early spring, and I was hoping that these were going to flower this week for a wedding, but I think they're going to be just a couple of weeks off that. We've got really nice buds coming there, but they're definitely not going to be ready for harvesting this week. That is the hardest part for growing for weddings, is getting things to bloom at the exact time that you need them to. You've just got that few days window cutting around a wedding, and some years you get it spot on and things will bloom exactly when you want them, and other times you try really hard but it's just not quite there because of the weather conditions. Here we've got my autumn sown corncockles, and these are just, I would say, another week away from flowering as well. So hardy annuals that are sown for me in Scotland in the autumn will flower at the very tail end of May, beginning of June. Another hardy annual, the Cornflower, one of my favourite flowers to grow in the garden, and it's just blooming this week now, so that's the last week in May we're getting them. They were sown back in the autumn, lots and lots of buds coming on them, really tall plants, and they are looking really healthy. I've got a few different batches in different areas of the garden, and we'll get lots of flowers off these in the coming weeks. And I'll just show you here in a second what it looks like when you sow the flowers in the late winter, early spring instead. So here they are. You can see that they're looking much shorter and nowhere near flowering. I have recently pinched these cornflowers out to get more flowers, so they do appear a little bit smaller than they otherwise would, but they're still very different to those autumn sown ones. So it shows it's really worthwhile doing an autumn sowing if you can get them into overwinter. You will get bigger, taller plants with more flowers. Here's my autumn sown stalks, and these smell absolutely gorgeous, and these are the last of the ones for flowering that I did sow in the autumn now. They've been flowering for the last several weeks. And I've also got some stalks that I sowed in January, but they're much smaller and much further away from flowering. So here in Scotland, which is zone 8B, it is normally May before the anemones and ranunculus get into full swing, and that's quite different to maybe southern England or other parts of the world where your anemones and ranunculus might be coming to an end at this stage. But these are just looking really good this week. We're starting to get longer stems on the anemones. When you first have them and you cut the first ones, they're normally quite short stem, but then they start to get longer after that. And they are going to probably keep going for a good few weeks now, probably until mid-June, late June for me. I have planted out my anemones and ranunculus in different parts of the garden so that they'll flower at different times, and that helps extend the number of weeks that they will be in bloom for as well. The ranunculus are really looking lovely this year. The only problem that I've had with them is the aphids. They seem to be really bad in the garden this year, so I'm just trying to keep on top of them as much as I can. You can spray them with horticultural soap, that helps to get rid of the aphids, and also I just go around and I just try and take off as many as I can with my fingers as well. You can just see some of the aphids there on that ranunculus. I planted out my ranunculus about hand width apart this year, but I'm thinking actually they didn't need to be spread quite as wide as I did put them. I think next year when I'm doing that I can put them closer together. Lots of lovely white ranunculus are coming up in the garden just now. They're all at various stages in bud. These ones are going to flower really well this week, but there's lots more buds on other plants to come. And I'll cut them and more stems will come on these ranunculus for a good few weeks yet. Here's some lovely darker ranunculus as well. So they're definitely getting into their stride now. It has taken a while. We had some cold weather back in April, which might have slowed things down, although they are a cool-loving flower, so they don't like intense heat, which is why they're suited to Scotland in May, because we really, and yes, it's an unusual year, we have pretty mild temperatures. Just starting to get some red and orange ranunculus coming through now, and these were ones that were pre-sprouted later, so these were pre-sprouted in the late winter, so they will flower a little bit later for me. I'm getting excited to see the first buds appearing on the sweet peas. These are all the ones that were sown from seed in the autumn and overwintered. So that is going to be the very last week in May, first week in June that we're going to start getting these flowers, which is pretty good for me. If I can get any in May, that really is a bonus outside. And the ones that I sowed in January are a few weeks behind, and some of them I still need to plant out. I love Phacelia. It is such a different hardy annual to grow, and you can grow it as a green manure as well, so that it can help to add nutritional content to your soil. It is really easy to grow from seed, and I've got lots and lots of buds coming on these now. I've got them in a few different flower patches in the garden so that they'll bloom at different times, and I'll keep succession sowing this throughout the summer so that we'll get blooms right up until August, September time. Some of the seedlings in this bed are self-sown seeds from last year's flowers, and these actually sometimes can be the strongest, best flowering plants, so I've left them be and they will come away again nicely for me this year. Sometimes I plant things in the wrong place. So a few years ago I planted lots of lovely asters, which will flower for me in September and October time, into my new cut flower beds, which really are best for putting in my hardy annuals. So I am digging these up and I am transplanting them to my top flower patch, which is turning more into a perennial garden. And that'll be best suited there. The soil conditions are good for them there. There's lots of sunshine, it's south facing. And then that means that I will be able to make this a complete bed just for putting in my hardy annuals every year, which will make things a lot easier. These Snapdragons are from last year. They flowered last year and then I left them in because they look quite good when winter came, and we had quite a mild winter this year, and they've come through and they're just starting to put buds on now, and that's quite handy for me because my Snapdragons are really slow growing from seed, so I don't tend to get any until later in the summer, and these ones will flower a little bit earlier for me. So if you can get them through the winter, they might be shorter stems, so good for jam jar posies, but it'll be the first ones that I get this year. Over here in the flower patch we have got my Larkspur, and this is my autumn sown Larkspur. It's not far away from producing flowers now. I can just start to see buds just coming on the tops of the plants now. And here we've got my late winter sown Larkspur, so much smaller and quite a long time away from flowering. That'll be the end of the summer before this one flowers. Over here I have got my Nigella that I have overwintered and sown from seed in the autumn, and that's going to flower within the next 2 weeks. We've got lots of buds coming on that there. Here you can maybe just spot that there's a ladybird hiding in the middle of that Nigella flower that's about to open. Lots and lots of buds coming on these. Sometimes it's worth just letting the garden do what it does best, and these are all self-sown Nigella that have popped up in the springtime after being in the soil over the winter, and they'll come away and make some really great flowers for me. Here is my autumn sown Gypsophila comfort garden, so it is just flowering this week as well. Lots and lots of stems coming on that. They really do flower really well if you have sown things from seed in the autumn on these hardy annuals. And here is my Ami Magus, and it was sown in the autumn, really lovely and tall, and you can just see the flower buds starting to come now. They're not quite there, another few weeks, but they're not far away, and really, really tall, not far off as tall as me. Just look at the difference here. This is Ami Magus that I sowed in the late winter, and it is a tiny plant compared to the really tall ones that are nearly as big as me that I sowed in the autumn. Perennials make really great cut flowers as well, and lupins are a favourite of mine, and a favourite of a lot of florists to use these days as well. They come in so many different colours, and when you cut and condition them to stop them from bending over, you can wrap the heads in paper, and that'll keep the stems more upright for you. But there's something nice about flowers that bend as they will. It makes it far more natural. So these are really flowering really well in the garden, and we'll get lots of these in the weeks to come. This bed here is a mix of peonies and also some alliums interspersed between them. We've got buds coming away on the peonies now. These are year two peonies, so they're still getting underway. By year 3, they'll be producing lots and lots of flower buds on them. Here we've got Aquilegia. Got lots of Aquilegia in the garden. It makes a really pretty cut flower. Just lasts a few weeks in the garden, but lots and lots of colours it comes in, and I really like it for something that's delicate and dainty in bouquets. And here's these rhododendrons in the garden, which have been flowering their socks off for the last couple of weeks. Some years are better than others, and this year they're really, really spectacular. Do you remember the video that I did in the autumn about naturalising bulbs in the grass? Well, here they are. They're coming up now and they're looking really nice. Some have finished, like the silver chimes are over, but the pheasant's eye are just coming out just now. And I'll keep adding to these as the years go by, but there's certainly a really pretty display there after just 1 year of bulb planting. And here's a bit more of a close-up on those beautiful rhododendrons. So May every year, normally about the second week in May, for a couple of weeks, they put on a spectacular show. And some of them are so beautifully scented as well. Here's the irises that I planted in the autumn. Really love irises in the last couple of years. These have got buds coming on them now, so they're only a week or 2 away from flowering. And I really must remember to plant more of these next year, because I didn't plant as many as I would have liked to in the autumn. And here we are in the back garden, and this is one of the beds that I've been developing in the last couple of years. The lavender, I've planted a few more plants of that this year. We've got lots of Jacob's Ladder coming away in here, and we've got some kawaii daisies, some Astrantia, lots of lovely perennial plants that will come back year after year. We have had a bit of a problem with rabbits getting into the back garden and nibbling away on the plants, but these seem to have come through fairly strongly just now. And I've got some herbs along here as well. I've got some marjoram and I've got some thyme. It's really nice having herbs just outside the kitchen that you can come and snip for using in meals when you like. And also I use them in buttonholes and small jars of flowers as well. Up in the top flower patch, things are a lot more perennial up here. So we've got lots and lots of alliums that I planted a few years ago that keep coming back year after year. Purple Rain and Allium Purple Sensation. And these really are great in bouquets, really structural. And Aquilegia is mixed in with these as well, and Hesperis and Polemonium, Jacob's Ladder that you can see there, and it really has a real country garden feel to it, the back garden now. I love to go up and spend time there, and it really does smell amazing at this time of year as well, especially when it's been warm and it's rained and it's damp. And we've got some perennial cornflowers here as well, and these come in a few different colours that I grow, mostly blue, but there's some nice purple ones here as well. More alliums. These again are Purple Sensation, so these ones are the best ones in the garden that flower for me. Just the right size, not too big. And here Purple Rain that I've just lined the edge of the bed with, so I can plant some hardy annuals in the middle to come through, and these alliums just add a bit of colour just now for the next few weeks. Here we've got some Camathea. These have popped up, naturalised all through the flower beds up here, which are really pretty. This is one of my top favourites. It's Ranunculus Fluoroplano, and I just think it is beautiful, and every year it keeps getting bigger and bigger, and I cut it for bouquets, use it for hair flowers. It's lovely, and I have them dotted in different places in the garden so that they will flower at different times. So these are a little bit behind the ones that you first saw there, so that gives them an extra couple of weeks of blooming. And here we've got Sweet Cicely, which is a really nice herb. I often use the ferny foliage in flower arrangements as well. This pink umblifier in the garden is really pretty, and you can use it in bouquets. You have to be quite careful that you don't cut it too early that it wilts, but not too late that it's dropping its petals. Over here we've got more of those gorgeous perennial blue cauliflowers, which just keep coming year after year, multiplying, getting bigger plants, and they're cut and come again. You can cut them and more buds will come through. And the bees are really enjoying going on those flowers at the moment in the garden. Over here we've got more Aquilegia, which is mixed in with Astrantia in these beds. And we've got more of that lovely pink umblifier there. Really pretty. Just lasts a few weeks though, and then it's over for the year. Here we have got my yarrow foliage. I grew this from seed in the autumn, and it's starting to come away now and really bush out to become a good sturdy plant with flowers hopefully later in the summer. And here is my Daucus, and that's starting to have buds on it, and this was autumn sown, and this is doing really well. Really big, strong, sturdy plants, and like the Amimagus, isn't far away from flowering. Will give me long, strong stems. We've got my thistles out. These are really nice. They produce so many different buds and flowers for me, and a really nice colour as well. They're really good to work into bouquets at this time of year. And this is my Stilbe, and it's really happy up here because it's a nice damp part of the garden. The soil is really quite wet, it's not dry like some other areas. I've got my bronze fennel, which comes back really, really well for me every year, produces great structural flowers for bouquets. The lilac is just coming away now on the trees, and so that will be looking really pretty for the next few weeks. Honesty in the Garden is another great self-seeder, so you'll find it popping up everywhere, and it's really useful early on in that April spell when you don't have many other filler flowers. It's great in bouquets. This is white Jacob's Ladder Polemonium, and it is really pretty. So I've got bluey purple ones in the garden, and I've got these lovely white ones as well, which are really pretty in bridal work. This is a top favourite of mine in the garden this time of year, and it's been flowering for the last 2 weeks, and it's called Ravenswing, and it just looks so pretty in bouquets. I used a lot of it in bouquets and for table arrangements at a wedding last week, and it looked really lovely. It's really frothy and airy and looks really pretty in amongst all the alliums and Aquilegia and the perennial cornflowers in the garden. Again, I plant it in a few different places in the top flower patch so that it will, depending on the shade and the light levels it gets, flower at different times ever so slightly. So that just extends the period that I can use it for. Here we've got the Astrantia, another top favourite flower of mine, and really grows fantastically well for me here in Scotland, and it's just starting to show its flowers just now, and it bulks out really well every year. You can divide it and to make new plants, and you can move it around your garden and have it in lots of different areas. Here we go, lots of different Astrantia there. Looks really pretty in amongst the blue of the perennial cornflowers. And it comes in lots of different colours as well. I've got whites, I've got pinks, I've got reds in the garden. Here is Geum. These are really pretty as well this time of year. I've just been trying to bulk up my beds with these in the last few years because I really like them. They grow well in Scotland. Here we go. We've got some lovely orange ones here as well. And these keep producing new stems as well. So I'll cut from them and there'll be more stems that will come up to flower. And these ones here are in amongst the hellebores I've got in this bed, which have finished flowering now, and the Geums have taken over, and we've got some nice Pheasants Eye Narcissi in there as well. So it's always thinking of what can you have flowering at different times so you've got colour all the way through the season. And here's another flower that does fantastically well for me here in Scotland in Zone 8B, and that is Feverfew, and I love the daisy flowers on it, and there are so many stems on these plants I've grown from seed this year. They are looking fantastic. They're going to be full of daisies in a few weeks. And finally over here we've got some Hesperis, Sweet Rocket, which smells delicious especially in the evenings, and this is just starting to flower now. We had some for the first time last week. Long sturdy stems. Only thing to do is just make sure if you've got some windy weather coming up that you do protect it and stake it, because it's tall and it can flop over easily in the wind. And if you cut these back and use them in flower arranging now, you'll find that they might have a second flush in September time for you before the season's over. But I really like them just because they do smell so lovely, and they're really great filler flowers in bouquets. And they keep going for a great number of weeks as well for me before they're finished. Thanks so much for watching this week's video. It's been really nice being able to show you around the flower patches and what is flowering in May. There's so many beautiful flowers at the moment in the garden. And it's going to be a busy few weeks for me. I've got some weddings coming up. I'm going to be going in and helping some nursery children make some jars of flowers for their afternoon tea party to celebrate the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. And I've also got a huge amount of planting out to do. All those dahlias need to get out into the beds, the rest of the seedlings need to get out into the beds, and I also need to keep on sowing just for a few weeks more so that I get flowers at the very end of the season. And I want to show you as well a little bit more on pinching out in the next couple of weeks, because we've covered a lot of different plants, but I also want to show you some more plants that you can pinch out, but also those that you really don't want to pinch out because they're single stemmed flowers. We'll have a look and see if any of our cuttings have taken as well from our pinching out, so things like our snapdragons, our dahlias, our chrysanthemums, they should hopefully all be getting us some new plants with roots on, so we'll take a look at that. So join me next week in the garden.